right, everybody, welcome to episode 26 of the Comedically Hardheaded podcast. Now, where we left off, we've been in the middle of our middle school series, and so we've covered 7th grade and how terrible it was, and 8th grade, how it was a bit better, and then we get into what you would call my 9th grade year. Now, 9th grade is technically high school. However, where I went, our middle schools were 7th to 9th grade, but the 9th grade still counted towards high school. So anything you did in 9th grade was going to go on the high school transcript. You were just still in the junior high building. And so that would be the experience that I had. And so let's jump into the shenanigans of 9th grade. Now, that summer before 9th grade was actually pretty lit. I remember I had this black Huffy bike that I used to take everywhere because, again, Spanaway, there's not a whole lot going on as far as retail and recreation because really the area is just a bunch of housing subdivisions. And so there were all these neighborhoods. There was Clairwood where we lived. There was Clairwood 2. There was Deerfield. That's where my friend Brian lived. There was Hidden Village. There was Crescent Pond. There was Taylor Point. There was Olympic View. There was Legend Park. There were all these different neighborhoods, and I'm skipping a whole bunch of them. But that was pretty much Spanaway. Some neighborhoods, and then again, there was a Walmart. And I think at that point, they had built a Denny's across the street from the Walmart, so you know we're getting real luxurious around here now. And then there was a shopping center on the other side of town, which I guess you could consider it would be the downtown, but Spanaway's not technically a city. It doesn't have a mayor or a city hall or nothing like that. And so there was this place called Pacific Commons that used to be jumping in the 90s, but by the time you got into the 2000s, most of the stores were gone. But at that time, there was a Kmart, there was a Mexican restaurant, there was a Dairy Queen, a pet store. There was a store called like Fashion Bug and Factory to You that were there, and I think there was a nail salon and a key bank at that little shopping center. And that's pretty much Spanaway, to be honest. And so, you know, that bike got me everywhere. I remember I would just go and visit friends, and sometimes, you know, I'd go to Antoine because he lived down the street, or I'd go to Chris because he lived like also down the street but within Clairwood, and then Bobby was next door. And if I was really, really patient, my friend Nia, she lived on the other side of town. And so, you know, that was a good little 10, 12 minute ride on a bike. But she had this nice house. Like, her parents had money. And so I remember every time I would go to her house, we used to just play and do music because she had all this nice music equipment. Like, her parents had bought her a Motif keyboard. I used to be so jealous because that was one of those, like, $1,000 keyboards that the professionals use when they go on tour and everything. And so we used to make beats over the phone. Like, I had a little Casio that my mom had bought me, and she had her Motif. And so, you know, sometimes I'd be making some kind of beat, and then like we'd have the phone on like speaker, and then she'd be playing chords, and we'd be making, like, it was kind of cool for, you know, again, when you're in a town where there's not a lot to do, you got to be creative to stay entertained. So that summer I decided I definitely want to play football again, as if I did not learn from the previous season. But for some reason, I just felt it's going to be different now. And plus, to be honest, by the time the 8th grade season had ended, I kind of found my lane. I started to be a much better player as a corner and a safety. So I'm like, okay, I understand what I'm doing now. I had good coaches. It was these 2 black men, Coach Shelton, Coach Sparks, and the team was good. We were undefeated, and we wanted to do it again. And everybody was like, yeah, let's all make a pledge to come back next year. And so I remember there was a football camp at the high school sometime during that summer. I did that. That had gone pretty well. I was feeling myself. I was like, this is going to be the year. We're about to kill it. I'm about to be even better and everything. And so, again, at Cedar Crest, it goes from 7th to 9th grade. So in my head, I'm like, yo, this is like, we're the big dogs on campus now. This is like the varsity team. This is going to be, you know, I walk down the hallways and people are like, oh my God, that's Michael. He's so fine. You know, in my head, I just, everything that I thought of what I saw on television in regards to how people saw the football team, I bought into all of that. So I just knew it. This was my time. And I have gained a little weight. We have now crossed the 100-pound threshold. We're like at 102 pounds now. And we've gotten a little taller, all right? We're about getting closer to 5'3", all right? We what's up? What's good? What y'all want to do? I'm like Vin Diesel right now. What's good? And so we get to practice. There are some changes. We don't have Coach Shelton or Coach Sparks because they specifically only coach the 8th grade team. There's a new guy in town. Now, I can't remember his name, but all I remember is he came from Arizona State as far as the university. And so that is all we heard about for the first 2 or 3 days of practice. Back at Arizona State, at Arizona State, at Arizona State. It was like this older white man. At Arizona State, Arizona State, and when at Arizona State, what at Arizona State, and I'm sitting here thinking like, well, what are you doing here? Because you're not even at the high school. This is the junior high level, and what happened? Something must have not gone well over at Arizona State. And so, I'm already feeling myself because I don't know why. I just thought that, that one shift of a school year in the summer just had me feeling like, I was Ricky Waters, if you remember him from back in the day. And so, couldn't tell me nothing. And the worst part, the coach never had my name right. He kept calling me Marshall, so I already had smoke for the coach. But the bigger beef I had, because at this point, things are much better. Remember in the 8th grade episode, I didn't even have the right size pads. My pads were way too big. The shoulder ones, they were huge. I was looking like a dang Transformer or the Megazord from Power Rangers. Now, the padding and everything fits. My dad had taken me to get my physical on time, so I was able to get at the front of the line to get all the equipment. I got the nice shiny rider helmet. I'm ready. Got some new cleats, everything. This is going to be that year. Man, that coach worked us to death. I was like, this is the worst experience I've ever had. We did nothing but run. Oh my God, he just made us run up and we used to run up the hill and run back down, run up the hill, run back down, run up the hill, run back down, run up the hill, run back down. Somebody's talking, run up the hill, run back down. And then he made us do what you call like the gassers and the sprints, where you just literally ran from one end of the football field to the other. And he'd set the timer and you had to be to the other end of the football field by a certain time or everybody was going to do it again. He really coached in the realm of we are all one unit, so when one person flakes off, we all flake off and we all got to suffer together. And so we suffered for them last few weeks of the summer going into the school year. And mind you, that was a really hot summer. And the thing about football, people don't realize how hot it is to wear all that stuff, especially if you have a helmet. And at that time, I was growing my hair out, so I had an afro at that time. And so, you got the hot helmet on, you got all the layers and the pads and the this and that. That crap is hot. And so I was sweating in places I didn't know I could sweat. Sweat was coming out of my eyebrows and going straight into my eyeball. The sweat was burning. I'm like, this ain't it. And man, and there was a rule where nobody could miss practice. You could not miss practice, all right? Remember that for later. Now, when it came to the classes, what I do remember is we finally got to take more classes that were a bit more expansive outside of the basic subjects. It was always, math and science and reading and stuff like that. And now they were giving you the additional classes to take as well. And so I remember we had to take home ec. I don't even know if they still do that in school today, but you had to take home ec. That was an interesting class because I remember the teacher, her name was Miss Lacey Unsel. And Miss Lacey Unsel used to crack me up because every morning, now mind you, she was like this really short, stocky woman, but she used to always have her Yoplait yogurt at the beginning of every class. And so, all of us would come in and sit and the bell would ring and then class was supposed to start, but she was not starting class until she finished this yogurt. And you know how like Yoplait, people always try to scrape them corners with the spoon. She'd be in that class just scraping every morning. And we'd just be waiting like, okay. But that was fine with us because that meant we could just talk and run our mouths until she was finished. And then when she finally finished that last little scoop, okay, let's begin. I'm like, all right, cool. But I think in this class is when I discovered I was actually pretty funny. I never thought I was a funny person like that, but there was this girl that was in the class that I used to get her in trouble almost every day making her laugh. And it wasn't even intentional. I used to just always be talking trash because, in home ec, you'd have to cook and sew and do all these random different things. And I remember one time, I think we had to make cookies or something. And so the teacher was making like one of the students be the example. All I said was, look, ain't nobody even washing no hands. And they just over here rolling the dough and passing it around like we supposed to eat it. And for some reason, the girl that was next to me just busted out dying, and so we got sent out in the hall. And I'm like, I didn't do nothing. And so like literally in this class, I stayed like having that girl in trouble. It got to the point where one time she got in trouble and was like in tears because she was getting written up, and I felt so bad because I wasn't even trying to like joke around. I was just saying what was on my mind at the time. Like, man. And then there was this one kid in the class who did not have the best hygiene practices, I'll say that. I mean, he was always like scratching and digging in his head, and then he was always coughing and sneezing, and he always had a nasty wet cough, just constantly coughing. Then he coughed in his hand all the time and everything like that. And so I used to just be like, So I remember one time the teacher put us in groups, all right? We had to make pizza, and it was a group of 4. It was me, the girl that was always laughing, it was that kid, and somebody else. And I just kept looking at all of these ingredients and all the things that we would have to do with our hands. And so I'm over here being over analytical and thinking about everything because I'm sitting here looking at our group and I'm looking at all of these ingredients that we're gonna have to put together. So I'm like, oh Lord, man, wait a minute. I don't know how this is going to work because, like, we got whole tomatoes that we're going to have to cut. In order to cut the tomatoes, you're going to have to hold it down with your hand and use the knife to chop it and slice it and dice it. You're going to have to break up the mushrooms into the different pieces. Somebody's going to have to stir the sauce. Yeah, I know we got gloves, but he got them sharp nails, and I know the nails going to cut right through the glove. Then it's going to be touching them fingertips, and he ain't even under the nails are a totally different color. So I got into the space where I was like, you know what, how about this? All right, and so I was talking to that kid, I was like, all right, so you're going to spray the pan, and you're going to set the oven, and you're going to set the timer on the oven. So those would be the 3 things that you do, and then the rest of us, I started trying to delegate, and so while I'm delegating, old girl, she knows what I'm thinking, so she just busts out laughing, just messes up my whole plan. The kid gets offended, and I felt bad, but I was just like, man, in fact, because at home they make y'all eat everything you cook. That was part of the grade, too. If you're going to make it, you're going to eat it, and we're going to see that's going to play a role as to how well you do. And so she falls out dying, man. And then, God, the teacher had to give us a heart-to-heart. And so I explained to the teacher, like, listen, I promise you, it's not even me being a terrible person, but I've seen some things, and I just think if we're going to all, work on things that we all have to consume, we just want to make sure that, no one gets sick. Long story short, I was given lunch detention that day. And I remember I had this English teacher named Miss Hittenrock. And thinking back, I had a choice between signing up for honors English or just taking the regular English. The beef was, if I took honors English, I'd have to take it with this lady, Miss Johnson. And Miss Johnson was OD. I used to just be like, I will never take a class with that lady. Because remember how I said at Cedar Crest Junior High, our school was like one big giant rectangle. And so the classes that were upstairs, pretty much, you traced the entire rectangle of the building. But we had one-way hallways because the school was overcrowded. So everybody had to walk in the same direction. Miss Johnson had a class at the end of one of the corners, and she would be like hallway patrol. Excuse me, you are going the wrong way. Turn around. And like, if you didn't turn around and go the right way, or you try to still go in your class after walking the wrong way, she would come into your class, pull you out, make you walk all the way around, and then you're late to class, and then you got another lunch detention. I was like, I'm not dealing with that crazy lady. I'm not going. So I'm good. I'll take the regular English class. The downside to that, the school was already overcrowded. The building was supposed to hold about 630 students, and we had about 900. And so you had these really large classes, you had a lot of portables, and there were spaces where they would try to make a classroom. And so my English class was in the library. And the part that sucked was everybody thought I was in the slow class. Like, it just by the optics, it did kind of look like we were like the class with the students that just needed a little extra help. It kind of looked like that when you would walk past, just the way that the library was set up. And I used to be like, no, I just didn't sign up for the honors class. And I just remember my friends used to fry me up about being in that class. And it used to get on my nerves because, again, this was just an English class. It just wasn't the honors class. But my friends used to be like, dang, Michael, I didn't know you was down that bad. I was like, first of all, and then it didn't help, like, the optics, okay? The whole library was nothing but windows. And it was one of the corner rooms. So when people walked down and around the halls, you could see into the classroom and see everything. And so you just saw some of the characters that were also in the class. I'm like, this just ain't helping anything in my case. But let me tell you what was trifling about Miss Hittenrock. She was cool. I was cool with her all the way up until like Black History Month, where we were doing some kind of lesson and she was reading some kind of paper. I don't remember what it was. I just knew it was something racist and she was trying to show us the context of history at that time. But where she messed up with me was the N-word was in that piece of work that she had to read. And rather than just skipping the word or substituting the word or just maybe not even utilizing it or doing, something that's not going to piss off everybody, she was like, all right, so I will say the word, but we need to understand that this is just how people felt at the time, and in order for us to tell the story correctly, we have to paint the picture correctly. So please do not get mad. This is not me using it for fun. This is for history. And so she starts reading this paper, and I swear the N-word had to be in that paper about 40 times. I'm like, she didn't pick this piece of work on purpose. But anyway, it got interesting because every time she say the N-word, now mind you, I was the only black kid in the class. Every time she said, she'd look up in my direction just to see if I was responding yet, and then keep reading it. And then, keep reading, and then another N-word comes up. And so I'm just sitting there staring at her, stone cold face, like, are you serious? I was so disappointed because, to be honest, I really liked her as a teacher up until that point. Everything had been really cool. That had been a really fun class. I liked our assignments. I thought we read some interesting literature. I remember we had to read The Lottery. If you remember, that was like a short story they used to put in curriculums. I don't think they use it anymore, but that's the story about the town that randomly has a lottery, and every year during that lottery, the person that wins the lottery actually gets stoned by everybody in the town because they believe that in order to keep everything perfect, there had to be like some kind of element of control and order and routine. And so, you draw the little piece of paper, and if you had the black dot, then you were the one who had to get stoned, even if it was by your own family members. I was like, dang, this is crazy. And then there was a movie of it, so then we watched the movie too. And then there was this other short story. I don't remember what it was called, but I remember it was about these kids that lived on a planet where it just rained all the time. All it did was rain, no break in sight, and that's all they ever knew. But there was this girl in the class that was from Earth where she had experienced what the sun was like and partly cloudy skies and a sunny, clear day. And so she had been gassing up, what it was going to be like when the sun came out, because there was a projected day where the sun was going to come out on that planet. And so pretty much she got on all the kids' nerves. So instead, they locked her in the closet on the day that the sun was supposed to come out, and she couldn't get out. And so the kids were outside in the sun, just having a good time. Woo! And so finally she breaks out of the closet, and when she finally gets out, the rain had already come back. And I was like, yo, that is some trifling stuff right there. But man, I was so mad at Miss Hidden Rock after that. And you know what? I was still cordial, because I remember this one time she had asked me if she could borrow my calculator because she was grading papers. Now, I don't understand why she didn't have a calculator, because yes, we were in public schools, but the school wasn't struggling that bad. But anyway, I had a graphing calculator because I needed it for my math class. So I was like, okay, yeah, you can use my little calculator. And at that same time, the kid Chase that was in the class, he and I always had this friendly competition, because up until that point, we had been like perfect in regards to getting every assignment in on time, and also like always acing the vocabulary words or whatever we had, because that's still when they were giving you the vocabulary words and the spelling test and all that. And so I had been acing everything, and then somehow there was something I had that was late. And it wasn't on purpose. Like, the assignment was literally right there, and I was trying to give it to her. And I think her policy was like, well, if it's late, automatically it's only going to be 50% of the grade. And she would not budge on it. And I was so annoyed. I was like, give me back my calculator. So I remember I snatched my calculator and went back to my seat. And it was so funny because there was nothing she could do. It was like, you couldn't kick me out the class and suspend me for taking my calculator back. So you couldn't tell me ish about that calculator. I took that calculator and I just was looking at it like, yeah, you ain't getting it back. Go try to not let me get my freaking grade, but you're gonna use my calculator. Not in this class. Don't know who you think I am. Now, the class that I loved the most was drama. I had so much fun in that class, and so it was my teacher, Mr. Rockoff. Now, I had already had him 7th and 8th grade. In 7th grade, I think I told you guys about how they had this thing called exploratory, where every handful of weeks you would be in one class and then they'd switch you to another. And so one week or a set of weeks was drama, one was some kind of reading comprehension thing, one was music, one was all these different things. And so I had him for those handful of weeks for drama. And then in 8th grade, I had him for drama. And then 9th grade was like the advanced drama. And so that was just my class to just cut a fool and I just felt like I could just do the most up in there. Because again, this is also a weird time when my parents were starting to get all mean and strict and everything. And so drama was like the class where I could just be a fool and nobody was going to tell me anything. And so I enjoyed that class, and around that time, he was saying, hey, there's going to be a production that's going to come out in December, and so if you're interested, you guys should audition, and so on and so forth. I was like, that would be kind of cool. Yeah, I think I want to do that. So I remember, I was like, okay, I'm going to audition. I can't remember the name of the play. I just remember it was some kind of holiday play, and my character's name was like Bebo or Bebop, and I had a daughter named Pam, and I was obsessed with the holiday spirit and Christmas lights and some other stuff. I can't remember the name of the play to save my life. I have the script at my mom's house somewhere still. But, so I went ahead and I auditioned. I get the role, and then there's an issue because I'm still on the football team. And mind you, this is only like October, and football is going to clash with this play. These aren't going to work together. So anyway, I kind of tell Mr. Rockoff, I'm going to pause for a sec. I'll get back to you as to whether or not I can still do the play, because, I'm doing football. But football was starting to get on my nerves because, again, we got the coach, and coach, we still running. It's October now. We still running. I'm like, we've been running since August. How much running are we going to do? I understand the idea of building stamina, but dang, you just taking this out on us because you don't work at Arizona State anymore. This is almost obsessive. And so, yeah, we had a week where everybody kept catching it, so we just ran. And again, at this point, it's the fall in Washington. Now it's rain, it's gloom and doom. The field is muddy all the time. And again, the rule was nobody can miss practice. One person misses practice, everybody suffers. And there was this one day I was like, I'm just not feeling it. And I'm like, I'm going home. I'm not going today. And so I was trying to sneak off. And I don't remember if I told this story in another episode, but I'm gonna tell it again. I still remember this day like it was yesterday. School had just ended, and my last class was PE. And even in PE, we had just run the perimeter, which is not something we normally run all the time. Normally when we would have to run, we had to do the 20-minute run. And so that's, you run on the track for 20 minutes, and in order to get an A, you needed to have 8 laps. In order to get a B, you needed 7. You get a C, that was 6 laps. Anything under 6, you had to do it again, like as a repeat. And so the perimeter instead was when you ran around the entire property of the campus. And so we only did that like once or twice during the year. And so that just happened to be perimeter day. So I'm already worn out, I'm tired, I ain't feeling it. And I'm like, okay, you know what? I'm already in my PE clothes. I already had my stuff kind of already packed up, and I was like, okay, this is what we're gonna do. I just did the run. I'm gonna go in the locker room, just grab my bag, and go straight home because I still walk to school. I don't even have to take the bus. And so I'm trying to make sure I avoid everybody, because the other thing is there's like 45 people on the football team, so it's hard to try to sneak out and not be seen. And so I'm moving it, just going. I'm walking, yes, okay, out of here. All right, made it out of the gym, good. Made it out of the, okay, just downstairs. Okay, take the side door. Okay, side door, good. To the left. Don't go that way. Go, good. Go, good. Up the hill. And out of nowhere, Michael. I'm like, shoot. Pretend you don't hear them. And I forgot to have my little headphones on with my CD player, so I couldn't even pretend I was listening to music. So I just kept walking, Michael. And so I kind of try to not look back. Michael, I know you hear me. I'm like, damn. So I turn around. It's this kid, Miles. If you remember, Miles is from the last episode. Miles is like, where you going? I'm like, I gotta go home. He was like, no, man, coach already said nobody can miss practice. I was like, no, I gotta go. You don't understand. And Miles was like, no, man, because then everybody, I was like, no. My mom had a stroke. I gotta go. And then so I just walked off. He's like, whoa, man. Oh, man, bro. Just let everybody know we're praying for you. And so now I'm low-key punching myself in the face like, Negro, of all the things to say, why would you say that? When your mother had a stroke, really? You're gonna bring your mama into this and project things over her life that do not need to happen? Is that what we're doing? And so I was so mad at myself, but that was the only thing that could pop up in my head at that moment, because I was like, I have to say something dramatic enough where I can go home and the team won't have to do extra runs because I'm not there. And so I go home. I was like, okay, well, hopefully that should blow over. It shouldn't be too much of a thing. And so I get home, I relax. I don't even remember what it feels like to get home after school by 2:30. So I'm at home chilling. All the shows is on. I'm relaxing, eating my little snacks. And maybe at about 4:50ish, maybe 5 o'clock, doorbell rings. It's Bobby's dad from next door. I'm like, oh my God, what is he doing here? He said, hey, I heard about your mom. How's she doing? And I'm like, yeah, she should be fine. Yeah, they said everything's gonna be good. And I'm just over here just talking, just making it so, yeah, okay, well, tell them to give me a call when they get home, when your dad gets home. I was like, oh my God, please, God, let this story go away. And so, man, let me tell y'all, I went to school the next day. The football team had made me a whole card. Everybody on the team had signed the card. I was like, oh, you are not getting into heaven. You are not getting into heaven ever. You have, oh God, I felt so horrible. I was like, of all the things to say, somehow, I don't know how this never got to my parents, but for some reason, the follow-up kind of fell off after a while. It never got to my parents, and so I don't know how they never heard of this or how somehow they missed Bobby's father's conversation, because he was next door. And so, oh my gosh, that was the time there. And so I told myself I would never do anything like that again, because then my mother did have an aneurysm like a few years later, and I was like, okay, I will never speak things over people like that ever again. All of that just because I didn't feel like running. The nerve. So at that point, I was starting to realize, okay, if these are the shenanigans that you're going to have to do in regards to this team, maybe you might not want to be on the team. Because again, the team, it's a collective effort, and now you're the person that's slowing down the progress for everybody else because you want to be selfish. And so if you really don't want to do it, don't do it. Plus, I really was kind of interested in doing the play because I was like, that's the perfect way for me to really just do me. And I knew, when I looked at the role, it was like a really funny role. It looked like it was going to be fun. And this was around the time that I was obsessed with Chris Tucker. I just knew I was Chris Tucker Jr. and I would be in Rush Hour 3. Unfortunately, that came out after my senior year of high school, and so I'm not in that one. But if they make a Rush Hour for, I'm going to find my way to get up in that mess. So I'm gonna put it in the universe. But yeah, so I was just like, man, I was more excited about that play than I was football. And so I was like, I had to make a choice, like, okay, do you want to do football or do you want to do the play? And so I weighed the pros and cons, and then I'm like, you know what, I actually want to do the play. So then came the day where I had to tell my father, yeah, I don't want to do football anymore. And so I remember I came, I was like, Dad. He's like, what's wrong? I was like, hey, so I've been thinking about the whole football thing, and He's like, yeah, I know you've been working real hard. I see y'all be out there running. Y'all be just doing such a good job. I was like, yeah, and I'm just so proud of all the work that you put into it and the dedication. And you've been keeping your grades up. You've been staying out of trouble. You've been keeping the house clean. You and Marcus are getting along. You just been doing such a good job. Yeah, Dad. Yeah. And so, yeah, I think I don't want to do football. Why you don't want to do football, son? You got to keep it going. You just can't always throw it. Well, it's because, I want to do the play. Well, listen, son, if they're not letting you do the plays that you want to do, then you're going to have to just work a little harder. So maybe you run a little faster. Maybe, you hit a little harder. You try to catch a few more balls. No, Dad, no, not like the plays in the game, but like, I want to do like the school play. It's like this Christmas play, and it's going to be this play, and I already got the role. And my dad was like, what? Huh? What? I was like, yeah, so it's a play. It's a play. And so the thing is, the play is at the same time as practice. Huh? Karen. And so he's calling my mom. Michael said he don't want to do football because he want to dance around on the stage. Like, my dad was so... My dad was hot. And like the thing is, so I think I said this in the last podcast, but my father, it's hard to entertain him already. Like he doesn't laugh, or he didn't laugh a lot when he was alive for some random reason. Like if we went and saw a movie that was really funny, he might chuckle once or twice through the movie, but he was never one to laugh a lot. He wasn't impressed by a whole lot. So the idea of me doing a play for him, that was just something he could not understand. The whole idea of like theater production, and okay, I had my son who wanted to do football, now all of a sudden he wants to do a Christmas play. Like that was the equivalent of almost the Cosby Show when Sandra decided she didn't want to go to law school. Remember that episode? Her and her husband Elvin had just got married, and Elvin was supposed to go be a doctor, she was supposed to be a lawyer. Elvin decided he didn't want to go to med school. He wanted to open a wilderness shop in Brooklyn. And then Sandra decided she didn't want to go to law school either because she wanted to work at the wilderness shop with Elvin and they could be in love together. And then the mom spazzed out and everybody in the house, after all the money we spent sending you to Princeton, Sandra, you owe us $79,648.22, and I want my money now. I'm not going anywhere till I get my money. I'll take whatever she's got, empty her pockets. So eventually he understood where I was coming from and he got over it. And it wasn't like I was like the star quarterback or anything. It wasn't like I was making that much of a dent on the team to begin with. So I just figured something like, the comedy idea and doing the play would have worked better at that time. Now, I tell you what, I should have waited to quit at least until after the pep rally, because literally the pep rally or that assembly was probably like the next week. And I was like, dang, man, I should have waited, because of course, it's the gym and the whole school's in there and they announce the team and the team runs all out. And here I am sitting in the stands. I was like, I should have at least waited. I didn't even make it in the yearbook. You should have waited for at least a picture. Whatever. Speaking of Christmas, I remember my father made me help him always put the Christmas lights up. And so that specific year, we were putting the lights on the entire house that time. And so our house, it had a porch in the front that covered pretty much the entire front of the house. And it had like that awning that, would cover everything. And so he had already put the lights on the awning on that portion. He just used the ladder and did that. But then the very top of the house, he wanted me to do it because he was like, okay, you just weigh a lot less than I do. And I don't know if I stand on this awning, if it will support my weight. Because my dad had to be about 260 at that time. And so I'm like, so I gotta go up there and do it? He's like, yeah, you just open the window out of the bathroom or your room and then you climb down to the awning and then you hook the lights. I'm gonna give you the hammer and the nails. You're gonna hammer the stuff. Don't hammer it into the gutter. And then you're gonna loop the lights around. And then you're gonna bring it around and bring the lights down into my room window. And I was like, so I gotta also go on top of the roof awning thing and walk all the way to the edge of the house. That's what you're saying. Yeah, go on and do it. When I tell you this was one of the most chaotic moments ever. And so here's the visual if you were somebody who would have been driving past our house at that moment. You have me, who is all of 5'3" at this point, this little skinny kid standing on top of the first layer of the roof that sits over the porch. And I'm trying to hammer some nails into the roof that sits above me, but my arms are barely long enough to reach that portion of the roof. And then you have my father yelling at me through the open window telling me what to do. So he's delegating while I'm doing all the acting and all the moving. And so if you were looking, you just see, move to the left, Michael, hammer the thing there. Dad, I can't reach. Yes, you can reach it, Michael. You just gotta push the thing and push it down. Push the thing down. And then I start hammering. Don't hammer the thing that hard. You're trying to bring the whole roof down. And I'm like, well, you said just shut up and move the thing. And so we're sitting here, I'm trying to get the lights. And so all of that's going. Then my mom happens to pull up with the car at the same time. And my mom pulls up, Michael, get off of that roof, because she didn't see my father. And I'm like, Mom, Dad has me up here doing the lights. And then my mom starts fussing at my dad. Why you got that boy up there on the roof? Karen, he gonna be all right. He trying to put, y'all want the lights or not? I'm not coming up there. That don't make little sister had that boy up there. And then I'm just standing there, Dad, which one am I supposed to go? To the left. And so it's just 3 people yelling. I know my neighbors are like, this is the most chaotic family here. And of course, Marcus is just outside playing, doing whatever he does, unfazed. And so, yeah, the lights ended up getting put on the house. I think I did an okay job. But it was kind of terrifying because you don't realize how high you are until you actually get up there. As for the play actually went pretty well. I think we did 2 or 3 shows because I remember we rehearsed from October going into December. And so I remember one of the shows we had to get rid of the strobe light because somebody had a stroke in the audience with the first show. But the other shows went really well. My parents came to the last one. Well, actually, a parent came to the last one because my mom and dad decided to argue on the way there, and they had some kind of argument about the parking spot. And so all I know is by the time it was showtime, it was my mom and Marcus in the crowd. So my dad was mad and went back home. And then Marcus had gotten in trouble already that day, and so he had this bag of M&Ms, and my mom had took his M&Ms. So he was mad because I remember when I was looking out into the audience, my mom was eating his M&Ms, and so he was having a whole tantrum in the crowd, and he knew not to make a sound while the show was going on, so he had to just kind of sit there and cry quietly. I was like, my family is just chaotic. Now, my father felt bad about missing the show, so he bought me a PlayStation 2 for Christmas, which was actually pretty dope because I really wanted one, and that was because I had discovered Grand Theft Auto. Oh my God, that was the best game ever. So my friend Chris had it at his house, and he had a PlayStation 2, and I remember I would just go to his house, and we would play on that thing all the time because he had his PlayStation downstairs in the living room. Oh, no, it was in the garage. He had it in the garage because his brother Marcel had drums in there too, and sometimes I would try to sneak on the drums. And so we used to play Grand Theft Auto all night, all day, and I kept begging my mom, like, can I get Grand Theft Auto? Can I get Grand Theft Auto? And so I only had a PlayStation. I had a PlayStation, and I had a Sega that I didn't really use anymore, and I had a Nintendo that I didn't really use anymore. And so, I just had that PlayStation, and so, it wasn't compatible with PlayStation because it was a PlayStation 2 game. And so I figured, okay, maybe if I just get Grand Theft Auto 2, which was on PlayStation, it would be the same kind of thing. And so I remember I went to Walmart and I bought Grand Theft Auto 2, and I couldn't wait to play it because even on the back of the graphic, it had the promo pictures for Grand Theft Auto 3, because I guess this must have been a re-release of Grand Theft Auto 2. So I was like, oh, it's gonna be just like the one I was playing at Chris's house. Man, me and Marcus put it in, turned the thing on. It was like this little cartoon game. I was like, what is this? But you know what? After a minute, me and Marcus started playing it. I was like, okay, this is fun. It's not the same as like the PlayStation 2 version of the Liberty City thing with that one, but we'll make it work. And so eventually, my father had bought me PlayStation 2, and so me and Marcus, once we had Grand Theft Auto 3, it was on. We used to play that all day. That and his 007 game. Me and my brother played that like it was nobody's business. All night, all day. Those were my games. That Christmas, we also went to Savannah. And of course, Savannah's one of my favorite places to go. But what was so funny about that trip, that was around the time my cousin Michaela was really getting much better with her speech. Because if you follow this podcast, I told you guys that I had a cousin, Michaela, who had Prader-Willi syndrome. And so she was still high functioning, but in those early years, it was really hard for her to communicate effectively sometimes. And so with her syndrome, there were a bunch of different things. It has something to do with, I think, the 21st chromosome, either 21st or the 24th. I think it's chromosome number 21. But what it does, it pretty much puts your body in a space where your body doesn't know when it's full, so you can just eat and eat and eat, and you don't really have a metabolism, so whatever you do eat stays on you. It kind of places you in a space of kind of being on a spectrum as well. And there's all these different things. There's also an element of dwarfism, and sometimes your organs are a little underdeveloped, and so sometimes people will take the growth hormones to help their organs and stuff develop a bit better, but the growth hormones as a side effect also make you gain a lot of weight, in addition to the fact that you also don't really have a metabolism at all. And so at that time, Michaela was becoming much better at speaking, but it was so funny because one of the things we always did, even though Michaela was different, we never treated her any different. Like, we talked to her the same way we all talk to each other, and it would be so funny because Michaela used to be giving us smoke sometimes, especially like when she got older. The way she used to have an attitude with us when we got on her nerves, it used to be so funny because, again, especially when she was younger, we weren't sure if she was going to be able to fully articulate all of her words. So they had already started her in the process of learning sign language. And so she was almost fluent in sign language. And so sometimes when she would say certain words and maybe we couldn't understand what she was saying, she'd say it a few times and then she would sign it. But what made it so funny is she'd be annoyed and have an attitude while she signed it. So like pudding, she used to always ask for pudding, but she called it pooning. And so she's like, I'm not pooning. I'm like, huh? I'm not pooning. What? And so then she signed it, pooning. I'm like, I know she ain't just try to fry me up. like Michaela, listen, and it was so funny. I remember when she got much older, like when she was like 17, 18, she used to have these moments where she would just relive whatever happened at school that day. Because, like within this program that she was in, she could stay until she was 21. But so at night, because she didn't have a real sleep pattern, it would be 2 a.m. She's having a whole conversation, cussing out everybody in that class with whatever they did. And so I would just be listening from the side. I'm like, dang, they was going through it in that class that day. Because one of those days, she was, you don't talk to me like that. And what you said hurt me. I'm like, dang, who hurt her? I want to go to the school and start jumping some of the kids in the class. And so, Michaela, she used to be so funny. But anyway, around that time, she had learned to say chicken nugget. And I think Michaela at the time was probably like 7 maybe, or maybe 6 or something. But she had learned to say chicken nugget. Oh my God. And that was her favorite thing. And so sadly, when you're constantly hungry and food is on your mind, that's the one thing you're going to talk about. So Michaela, chicken nugget was the word of the day that whole trip. I mean, she'd be taking a nap and she'd wake up, chicken nugget. I'm like, Michaela, no, we're not eating right now. Chicken nugget. Michaela, not right now. We're going to do chicken nuggets. Michaela, I done told you, man, we do it later. All right, thank you. Come on, let's go do something else. Michaela, I miss that girl so much. She sadly passed in 2019, but Michaela used to have us dying, and gosh, she was so funny. And so yeah, that was a good little Christmas break. And Brandon, of course, was there, and Marcus and the whole family. And so we had a really good time. And so yeah, that was Christmas. Another class I had this math class with this teacher named Miss Blank. And so that class was kind of fun because a lot of my friends were in that class. And actually, I think that was our first period class. And so Miss Blank, we used to give her the works in that class. We weren't bad. It was just everybody in the class was just chaotic because of our friendship. So the Nia girl was in that class. Chase was in that class. The girl that I always made laugh in home ec was in that class. A few other folks. And so, the little table I sat at was lit. We was always cracking jokes and everything. And I remember one time, me and Nia somehow were having some kind of disagreement. I don't even know what she said, but she pissed me off. I was so annoyed. And then she would not drop the subject about whatever it was we were arguing about. And so I had my binder. Now, here's one thing. I have always been kind of messy as a teenager. Like in elementary, I was the kid with the messy desk. Some of those desks where you could put the papers and stuff in. My desk was never organized. My locker was always junky. My binder would just have tons and tons of paper that weren't secured in there and zipped it. It was just chaotic. Now, fortunately, I have made a lifestyle change. I keep everything pretty neat and organized now. But in that moment, I just remember Miss Blank was teaching. And so she's doing her lecturing. We're supposed to be paying attention. Me and Nia are still going at it. And so I had my binder and it was not zipped up. And so I grabbed it and I was gonna flinch and pretend that I was gonna throw it at her, but it slips out of my hand somehow. I was like, oh shoot. And so as it was going in Nia's direction, Nia catches it, just throws it straight up and throws it behind her. And so all of the papers in this binder, it's like 30 sheets of paper, all start coming down. Miss Blank stops teaching and just looks at us. And she's like, I don't even know what that was, but I don't want to see it again. And keeps teaching. And it was so funny. But we used to put Miss Blank through it. And then we had this inside joke because Miss Blank had 6 eyelashes. It was we used to be I feel like maybe every time that we have a bad day in class, she goes home and rips one out gah, gah. And so we used to just say yeah, she rips her eyelashes out. I don't know. But this one time, our family, we had gone out to eat at that Mexican restaurant in Spanaway. It was called El Hidalgo or Plate. They switched management. I think they were El Plato something, and then they switched to El Hidalgo or something like that. But we were at our favorite Mexican restaurant because we used to go there every other week. So it's the 4 of us. We're eating, and guess who's there? It is Miss Blank with some of her friends. And I was like, oh, Mom, that's my teacher. And they're like, hey, Miss Blank. And she, oh, hi, Michael. And everything. And so everything's all cordial. And so Miss Blank and them are lit at her table, okay? I'm guessing these are other peers or teachers. And so I remember hearing them do the order. And the lady's like, okay, what's your order? And she's like, oh, tequila. And my mom was like, tequila? That's your teacher, huh? It's like, yeah. And listen, Miss Blank and them got lit in that little booth that they were in. That had to be the most lively party. My mom was like, you said that's your teacher, right? I'm like, yeah. And it's so funny because looking back now, I totally understand. After working with kids, I understand. You need a day to let loose. Because, they were having this loud conversation and tequila and shots. And I'm like, and mind you, this was a Thursday. I was going to see her in class the next day. So Miss Blank was off the chain. So that was a funny class. Speaking of restaurants, I remember this time the people at the restaurant were going to call the police on my parents. And so, long story short, we had gone to this Chinese buffet, and it was somewhere in Tacoma. I don't remember the name of it, but it burned down. and we didn't do it. And so we're at the restaurant. We were there maybe like 3 o'clock. It was me, my parents, my brother, and there was like this foster kid that my parents once used to take care of back in the day who was home from college. And so he was with us as well. And so we're eating and everything, and all was well. You know, my mom had gone, and I remember my mom had come back I think maybe she was getting her second plate. She was like, oh, you know, they done put the shrimp out now. Okay. And so, you know, she's eating the shrimp, and we're just having a good moment. And then our server comes, and it's like, oh, you know, I charged you for the dinner fee because, you know, it's now the dinner hours, and you had the shrimp. And my mom said, huh? And so what the restaurant had did was, when they were transitioning into dinner hours, they started bringing out some of the items that are served during the dinner items, but they're all still mixed in with the lunch items, and there's not really a distinction of what is what, and there's also no signage or anything. And so if you came in at 2 or 3 o'clock, you would just think, oh, they're just replenishing what's already there, and it is what it is. And so my mom was like, huh? Wait a minute, hold on. And so the server pretty much saw that my mom had shrimp on her plate, and because that shrimp was for the dinner service, now she wanted to charge all of us for dinner. And so my mom was like, wait, so you gonna wait till I done suck down the last good shrimp to want to say something? You done saw me sit here this whole time, and all of a sudden you want to charge me that? Since when do y'all do that? And so it was like this tag team special where my mom was going in on one end, my dad was going in on the other end, everybody in the restaurant staring at us, and the lady's like, I can call police. Call them then, call them. I'm gonna tell them exactly what you said, and I want you to explain to them exactly what you said to me and tell me how it makes sense. I was like, Lord, because listen, in our family, everybody talks fast when they get mad. Like, if you think I talk fast, when my mom gets in her pocket or when my dad used to get in his, we just like, and so they are just spewing it out. Everybody's just staring at us. Marcus is eating. Marcus is unfazed. He's sitting this is so good. You know, Marcus is eating his little rice and his noodle. I'm sitting there like, God, I hope nobody in here knows me. I hope no one in here knows me. But my parents were absolutely right to be frustrated. And so, yeah, the manager comes down and he tries to calm everything down. He's like, we don't have to call police. I'm like, and I'm confused at like, what are we calling the police for? Because my parents weren't gonna not pay. They were gonna pay it. They just weren't gonna come back anymore. So they went ahead and paid the bill and let it go. And then we never went there again. And then I read that it burned down and we didn't do it. That was also a really weird time because my parents started to get a lot more strict, and I didn't understand why, because I hadn't done anything wrong. My grades were the best that they had ever been. Actually, I came out of 9th grade with a 4.0. Like, I had A's in everything. Like, I'd never had grades that good before. I had straight A's in 6th grade, but 6th grade doesn't really count for anything. And so, yeah, I had like a 4.0 everything. I wasn't really getting in trouble, but for some reason, I think my parents were fearful that I would turn the other way and go and start doing a bunch of crazy things because I was getting at that age where I wanted to go out more. And again, a place like Spanaway, if you don't have a car, you're kind of stuck there because at that point in time, there wasn't really any public transportation on that side of town. The bus route didn't even run there yet. Like, there's a bus that runs there now. I think it's the one bus that goes up and down Pacific, but at that time, it didn't even go down to where we lived. And so if you didn't have a friend who had a car, your option was your bike. But Spanaway's kind of far from a place like Tacoma or Lakewood, and you wouldn't ride a bike there. So, you know, you had nothing to do but stay in Spanaway. So you started to see a lot of kids who, if they didn't have options to go and do things, kids start experimenting with drugs and weed and all this other stuff. And so I think my parents thought I would do the same thing. So they started to become a lot more strict, and it was a bit more restrictive of where I could go and who I could hang with. Like, the furthest south I could go from my house was Antoine's house, because he lived at the end of, I think that was 196th Street. So his house was like one border. Brian's was another limit because he was in Dearborn. Like, Nia's was too far, so I wasn't supposed to go to her house. Plus, my parents didn't like me going to no girl's house if her parents weren't home. And so, like, man, they just started getting strict. And so the answer was like always no. And I used to get so mad because in South Hill, they had like a YMCA, and they had late night at the Y. And so late night was always jumping every week, and like that's where everybody would go because, again, there wasn't a lot to do in the area if you didn't go to Tacoma, and Seattle was almost 50 minutes away. And so, you know, everybody would be like, hey, y'all, we're all going to late night. Michael, can you come? I'm like, let me go ask my parents real quick. Like, hey, Mom, can I go to... No. I didn't even get to ask where I was going yet. Like that. No. Yeah, no, you don't need to go. No child need to be out this late. It's 9:30. Exactly. Late. I'm like, oh my God. So I couldn't ever go nowhere. And then the one time my mom would let me go somewhere is when she sent me to the store. Sent me to Walmart. And Walmart wasn't even that close. Like, it took like 20 minutes to walk to Walmart. And she'd always be like, yeah, go to Walmart and get me some of my mementos. Like, she always called Mentos, like the candy or the mint. She called them mementos. Go and get my mementos. I'm like, Mom, I don't. And I used to be mad. Like, you really gonna send me all the way over there for that little piece of... Just go get the mementos and you can keep the change. well, you gave me $5. Like, what am I gonna buy? Like, okay. And so I would walk all the way down to go get the mementos, and then I'd always end up seeing some friend on the way there, and then, you know, it takes me an hour and a half to get back. And this is when teenagers didn't even really have cell phones, or at least I didn't have one. So, you know, I get home 2 hours later, and now I'm grounded because I done been out too long. It used to be just off the chain. Mementos. And it's so funny, my mom used to put a my in front of everything. Stuff that was common that everybody had, somehow she would put my in front of it as if it was like something exclusive to her. So anytime her church lady friends would come by and they needed entertainment, Michael, go in and put in one of my Medea tapes. I'm like, oh God, not those again. Like, you know, they were funny the first 3 times, but then it was like, Mom, every time somebody comes over, you playing these same 4 plays. And they would just be in there cackling and dying every time as if they had seen it for the first time. I was like, okay, man, all right. Now, since I was always in the house around this time, the one thing that did make me feel included amongst my peers who got to go and have a bit more freedom than myself was the emergence of Making the Band. That might have been my saving grace socially, because that show, all of us were hooked on it, and that season was when they were still putting together the band. And even that didn't go too well in the first season, and the band wouldn't be formed until the second season, but everybody used to watch that show. And so we used to be on like 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 way on the phone. Like, you'd call one friend who would call another, who would call another, who would call another, and before you know it, it's like you got 10, 11 people on the phone, and we're all watching the same show and laughing and giving commentary. And that used to be so lit. Like, and we would actually do that throughout like the rest of high school, and we did that with all of Making the Band all the way up until the Danity Kane eras. And so that was always a lot of fun until my parents were like, all right, get off that phone, you've been on that phone too long, ain't that much talking in the world. Like, okay. But yeah, like, everybody used to go in and watch that show. Like, those episodes about the band were hilarious. But yeah, so that was definitely a thing. And then when I think about other classes, I totally forgot. Okay, so I had a Spanish class, and so in Spanish class we had this lady, Miss Galligan, and Miss Galligan was nice, but I don't think she liked us, because again, we just clowned around a lot. And then again, it was like all the right people always ended up in the same classes. So this class, again, it's me, it's Nia, it's like 6 or 7 other people we all run with. And so of course that class is off the chain as well. And so I remember me and Nia had this inside joke, and Miss Galligan used to have all these different colored sandals, and for some reason, anytime she wore the sandals, she had an attitude. Like, if she had on some like different shoes or the Keds or something, she was nice and warm to everybody. But for some reason, when she had sandals on, all of us knew we were getting cussed out for some reason. And so me and Nia used to have these inside jokes, like, oh my God, Nia, she has the white sandals on. Let's just behave today. Oh God, she has the black ones on. It's the brown sandals. Okay. And we had no idea that she always heard our sandal jokes until this one day where Miss Galligan called Nia's mom and told on us. It was like, yeah, they're disrespectful. They're always making fun of my shoes. And I'm like, oh God, we're not making fun of the shoes. We just said that when you had those ones on, that's when we're going to get yelled at. And so I just remember I came to class one day, Miss Galligan was like, I have a special announcement. I have been told by Nia's mother that Michael and Nia are not to sit by each other. I'm like, okay, you ain't had to announce that to everybody, but whatever. But I remember this one time, we got to cook for the class. It was some kind of like Hispanic Heritage Month activity, and so everybody was supposed to bring a dish. It was gonna be a potluck. And so my mom used to make this really, really good little some kind of bean dip. I don't even know what it was called, but it used to be so good. One of our neighbors taught her how to make it, because we had a neighbor. I forgot what part of Mexico she was from, but God, she could cook so well back in the day. And so she taught my mom how to make that special dip. I was like, Mom, can you please make the dip for my class? Because everybody's going to bring something. Yeah, I'll make the dip. Yeah, that's fine. Okay, yeah, I'll make the dip. And so it kept getting closer and closer to the day. I'm like, Mom, you still going to make the dip? Or are you going to still? I'm like, I'm going to make the dip. Stop asking me all these questions. That's how I'm going to make it. You know I work. Okay, all right, fine. My bad. Do them. Anyway, and so it gets closer, and now it's the day before. I'm like, Mom, the party's gonna be tomorrow, and we haven't made the dip. All right, come on, let's go to the store. And so we go to the store. I'm thinking we're about to get all these ingredients. My mom, we go to the heritage aisle or the international foods aisle at the store. I watch her grab this one packet and then put it in the cart, and then we leave. I'm like, what's that? She's like, that's what we need. I'm like, oh, okay. I get to the house. Let me tell y'all what my mom did. She didn't make the dip at all. She just didn't feel like doing it. You know, we had tortilla soup. It was like this tortilla soup, and it was the kind that's already in the package. You just open the package, add water, heat it up. I was so mad. Like, listen, I had gassed up this dip to everybody in class about how dope it was gonna be, and like, man, I'm gonna just tell y'all right now, there's not gonna be enough for everybody, so make sure y'all treat me right, because if y'all don't, you won't be getting any. Like, I had gassed up this dip, and so I was so mad. I was like, dang it, Mom. And then the worst part, so literally, like I said, she just added the powder to the bowl, you would heat it up, and that was it. We couldn't find the lid for that specific bowl, because it was a really big bowl. We could not find the lid, so she's just gonna put some saran wrap on it, and then put some foil over the top, like that was supposed to really seal it in. And mind you, I walked to school. Like, I'm not on the bus, I'm not getting a ride. And so, the walk to school takes about, 15 minutes. So here I am at 6 in the morning with this big old bowl, and I'm trying to walk softly, and the water in the bowl is moving. You can feel it moving and hitting the top of the saran wrap, and it's starting to kind of seep out of the sides, and it's all red and staining your fingers. And so I walk all the way, I walk out of Clairwood, down 196th Street. I turn into the pond, because everybody would cut across the pond to get to 192nd Street. So I done cut through the pond, and I'm walking through bushes and all, holding this stupid bowl. And then, I cut across 192nd, and then it takes you to the side entrance of the school. And then I get in from the side, walk way across these fields, up the hill, down to the front entrance, and into the school. And mind you, Spanish class is not until like 5th period. And so this bowl has to stay with me all day. And so I done carry this stupid bowl into all my classes, math, drama. I think I had a computer class. It was all these different classes I had to take. I had to take this with me to the cafeteria. I was so embarrassed carrying this stupid bowl. And so by the time we got to Spanish class, I didn't even want to serve the little soup, all right? I tried to just hide it in the side corner and act like I didn't make it. And then what's so funny and so stereotypical, why did everybody in the class, everybody either made quesadillas or nachos? I'm like, y'all, now we gonna have to do better. I'm not trying to be that person, but listen, had this had been Black History Month and all them white kids would have brought some fried chicken, I would have fought each and every person in the class. I was just like, y'all couldn't expand your horizons a bit. See, I at least had a dip, all right? I guess that would have went with the nachos, but it don't matter. It was gonna be a special dip, all right? And it was straight from Mexico, because the lady that lived down the street from us taught us how to make it, okay? This was authentic, okay? Not no Chipotle type mess. Thank you. I was so mad at my mom. I was like, you could have at least done the Mexican hot chocolate if we was gonna do this little nasty soup. I was so mad. And then it didn't help. You had to present your meal in front of everybody because it was a part of your grade. So I had to bring this bowl. Oh, I was so mad. And Miss Galligan, I felt like she understood what I was frustrated about, but for her, she was like, good, that serves me right, always making fun of my sandals, and then you gonna come in here with some juice in a bowl. I was so mad. But no, that was a really funny class. And Nia used to act a fool in that class, because I just always remember this one time, and I don't remember if I told this story before, we had this assignment where we had to order hot dogs in Spanish. And so it was the Buenos hot dogs assignment. And so what you had to do is you had to learn all the toppings that were in Spanish, like cebollas and all the things like that. And so Nia already didn't want to do it because she don't like hot dogs. So when Miss Galligan had announced it, she was like, hell no, I don't want that, I'm Muslim. And so Miss Galligan was like, Nia, step outside. And so Miss Galligan goes and talks to her like, are you actually Muslim? Because we can do hot dogs that don't have pork. And he was like, no, I just wanted to say that because I didn't want to do that. So Nia already got in trouble for that. But then fast forward, now we have to do the assignment because, they brought real hot dogs to the class, and you would order, and it was the mustard and the relish and all that stuff, and you would just order it in the language. And so, I had already did mine. I think I got mine with like some mustard and some onions and relish, and I was good with that. And so Nia was like, okay, it's your turn, Nia. And Miss Galligan was like, okay, Nia, make your order. And she's like, nada. And Miss Galligan's like, no, this is a part of your grade. Even if you don't want to eat anything, you need to order something, and we'll just put it down so I can tell that you've done the vocabulary words. And so she's like, okay, una hot dog. And she's like, okay, but because they let us say hot dog, because I guess you can say hot dog instead. But anyway, she's like, Nia, you need toppings. She said, okay, chile? Nia got sent back outside. I was just like, we used to act a fool in that class. Like, Lord, hot mess. Now, one of the things that did suck a little bit towards the end of my 9th grade year, my father's new job had him going to Germany for, about a handful of months. And so, remember, he had been working at the window factory all those years, and then he had finally landed a new job, but this job required him to travel. And so now that he was traveling, there were going to be times where there wouldn't be somebody home for Marcus, because at least when he was at the window factory, he usually had a later shift, and so he'd normally be home around the time Marcus would have got off the bus, so there was somebody there to watch him. But now he's gone, and so somebody has to watch Marcus, and my parents do not want to pay for daycare, and it's about to be track season, so I was not able to do track in 9th grade because I had to watch Marcus, and I was hot about it. Oh my God, I was hot. And then this also meant that I couldn't even really run the streets and stuff like I wanted to unless I took him with me. And so, man, that there was a time period I used to just get so mad because I really wanted to do track because I was really good at it. Like, I was winning all these races, minus the ones the ones in that last episode I told y'all about. But like, track I was really good at, especially with the jumps, having these really long feet and long toes. I could jump for days, and high jump, triple jump, long jump, hurdles. I was killing it all. And so I was so mad that I couldn't do track. And it seemed like that was the year everybody was on the track team. I'm just like, dang. Oh, I was so mad. But it was so funny because that was like the era where I had to take Marcus everywhere with me if I wanted to leave the house, because he was still a little too young to be at the house by himself. And so I would end up taking Marcus with me. Like, I'd go to my friend Brian's house, and it was cool to go there because at least Brian had younger siblings, because I think there was 7 of them. And the younger siblings were Marcus's age, and they all went to the same school. So, they could hang out while me and Brian would chop it up. Or if I went to Chris and Valerie's house down the street, Marcus was kind of self-sufficient. He'd be fine at their house and play on their basketball court or play on Chris's video games. Or if I took him to Antoine's, which was a little bit more entertaining, because at this point, Antoine's in high school now. I'm the one still at the junior high, and so Antoine had the high school friends around, and Marcus used to get on my nerves because he would talk so much when we get home, and he'd be like, "Mom, Michael cussed a lot. He said a lot of cuss words when he was with Antoine and some of the other kids. They had I was like, Marcus, shut up. Oh my God, like, dang it." And my mom, "That's why I told you don't need to be going to all the people's houses, because you don't need to be having them around all that, and I better not hear about you saying nothing out of pocket, because you know good and well I don't play that in this house." And I just was like, yeah, okay. So as the year was coming to an end, I had a very, very, very good academic year. So like I said, I had a 4.0. I had just killed it in everything, minus football. And so, I had pretty much killed it in everything. And so now the year was winding down, and it was time for awards night. And so, that's the night where they have all the families come in and you give the awards to the students that have done really well. Plus, this was kind of like our graduation from middle school. And so my dad at this point was back from Germany, and he was also restoring order in the house because I was kind of starting to show my behind a little bit with my mother, because she and I were starting to butt heads on a lot of things. Like, listen, I'm a mama's boy, but there was a period where we just didn't see eye to eye on anything, because you get older, you start getting your own viewpoints that don't always align with your parents, and then you're a bit more outspoken. And once the father has left the house because he's not there because of work, you feel like you have a bit more leverage to say and do what you want, and come in a little bit later, say a few more things that are on your mind. And now Marcus is starting to try to follow and do exactly what I'm doing at the same time, and so on and so forth. And so my dad came back to regulate, okay? But anyway, so they're having this awards night, and so I remember I had this white pinstripe suit that I loved, right? And I hadn't worn it for a while. Like, I initially had it, okay, this sounds crazy. So I had it in 6th grade, but I did not grow that much between 6th grade and 9th grade. I grew a little bit, but not a whole lot. And so I thought I'd still be able to fit the suit just fine. Plus, it was a little too big when I had it in 6th grade. And so I remember I wore it for Easter in 6th grade, and I wore it at the 6th grade promotion ceremony when you left, the elementary and transition in middle school. And the reason I love the suit so much is, like, I remember when I wore it, and this is back when my mom made me and Marcus dress alike for church and stuff. And so we had just got so much praise, like, "Oh, y'all are just so handsome. Oh my gosh." And so, mind you, I had all of these nice suits in the closet, but I wanted the white one. Like, that's the one I wanted to wear. I was gonna wear that white one. And so, they used to dress me and Marcus alike. And even when I used to live in Savannah for extended periods of time, they would dress me and Brandon alike. And if we didn't dress alike, we had clothes that complemented each other. So people always thought Brandon and I were twins until we were about 12. And so, I start walking to the school because the students needed to be there earlier so they could do the run through of everything, and then the parents would meet up later. And so my mom had already told me, that suit is too small, put on a different one. I don't even know why that's still in the closet. You should have got rid of that a long time ago. So she told me, like, you got some of these other ones, put that on. I'm like, yeah, okay. And so I go ahead and tip on out the house in my white suit, and about halfway during my walk, I'm like, yeah, this is a little okay, maybe I should go back and change. But now it was a little too late to change. I'm like, I gotta just ride this on out. Because it was like the clothes just fit a little off. And then I realized the pants rose a little bit higher over the ankles. And they fit a little bit tighter. And the suit looked a little uncomfortable around the chest area and everything. And I'm like, oh, crap. And mind you, it was a suit that had to stay buttoned. Like, you couldn't, like, leave it open because there was no, you didn't have to wear, like, an undershirt under it. It was like this unique little outfit. And so, anyway, so I didn't have like a button down under it. It was just, like a t-shirt I think I had under it. And so I get to the school. I have won every award known to man. Excellence in math, excellence in reading, excellence in drama, excellence in Spanish, excellence in this, excellence in that, whatever else I did, community service something award, exemplary student award. Like, I got all these awards. And so every time I won an award, I would have to get up and walk to the front to get this award. And each time I went up to get an award, I became more and more self-conscious about the suit I had on. And I felt so stupid walking in there. And it was so bad because I didn't even realize so many people were like laughing at me quietly. And my friend Mercedes always talks about, like, yeah, I remember my mom was like, who's that boy that got that suit on that's too small? I was like, dang it. It was so embarrassing. And I was like, see what happens when you don't listen? Like, your mama done told you what to do. Listen to your mother, children. She's usually right. Man, the way my family fried me up in the car on the way home, I was so annoyed. Because at first I thought I was going to get fussed at for not listening to them. But oh no, they were good sports about it. They thought it was hilarious. I mean, the whole family was getting jokes in. Because again, if you follow me, my family, we clown. That's just how we do things. And so everybody had rounds. Even Marcus was getting some jokes in. Your legs look really long. They look really long. Like the pants couldn't fit right. Like they get close to your knees. I'm just like, oh my God, shut up, Marcus. Keep that same energy when you want to play my Grand Theft Auto, okay? Because you won't be playing it. And so my parents were like, yeah, I don't know why you didn't listen to us. You didn't feel stupid out there looking like an ex-member of the OJs. Shoot, we had to start clapping for some other kid and pretend he was our son because we was embarrassed. I was just like, dang, well, forget y'all too. Look, we didn't even take no pictures at the ceremony. Ain't took no family pictures, nothing. Just get in the car, let's go. And so, good times. But no, 9th grade was a lot of fun. Like, so middle school, as I close this series, middle school started out really rough and I hated most of it, but as it closed, it ended up becoming a much better experience over time. I still don't really want to go back and relive any of those years at all, but it was cool. And so as I would get ready to transition, I was excited for high school because high school looked like it was going to be really lit, but there were going to be some changes. My friend Brian was going to be actually going to a different school because I forgot why, but he was going to end up going to Bethel High School, which is like our rival school. And then even Ania girl would end up going to Tacoma School of the Arts, the Performing Arts School. And so I was like, okay, but high school is about to be lit. Like, I had friends now that were just starting to drive, the ones that were already in 10th grade. And so I was already mapping out how lit it was going to be. But yes, so that was middle school. A very unique experience, and I think everybody has their experiences. But yeah, so that was mine. Anyway, I'll catch you on the next podcast.